Good morning, Raptor Freaks. Lexiot's here. Friday morning, Friday Freakout. And today I'm freaking out over an interview with Jrue Holiday yesterday. Jrue Holiday of the Bucks, all defensive, all-star Jrue Holiday, very good player who's also said recently that he's probably going to retire in the next couple years. Well, he had a very outspoken interview. And the other thing we need to note about Jrue Holiday is he is the two-time winner of Best Teammate in the NBA award the last 2 years. He has been deemed by the league. Everybody votes in the league as being the dude that is the best teammate in the whole entire league to like his team. So Jrue Holiday is a very well respected player in the league by his peers. They know he's a very nice guy. He's a very cool guy. He's a great teammate to have. I've seen his "How Hungry Are You" with Serge talking about his private life and things that he has to battle being in an interracial marriage, and then just other things that are going on with him. He is a quality, great, all around kind of dude, good basketball player, and just a great human being. So his words and what he says are kind of cool to hear because he's got a sound opinion that I would listen to because he's a good person. And well, his interview yesterday, very, very strange coming out. He's talking about Nick Nurse, our former coach, and of course, they're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks coach's search and that Nick Nurse is a finalist to get that job. And I think Jrue Holiday wants him to be the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. At least it seems like from what he's saying in this is that, all right, I'll direct quote it. I'll play it real quick. I've got it on YouTube on mute, and I'm just going to read what he says exactly after this because he's getting interviewed by Sideline Stroll with Roz. And he has some very interesting things to say. And I want to debate some of these things or kind of talk about y'all's perception about what Jrue Holiday said and how you feel about the character of Nick Nurse after you heard this. Let's see. And he says basically this. He says, I think Nick Nurse brings a little bit of crazy to a team. I think in terms of how strategic he can be for games, and that's intriguing. He doesn't always come off as like the nicest person, but you also don't need that if you're a good coach. I get my players ready for games and I get them out there to compete, and I'm on their side and I'm rocking with them. So and they're rocking with me. I feel like he's won a lot of games and he's had some great players, and they've done pretty well when he was head coach. So I see why people like him. Okay, all right. So basically, my questions are: first of all, is Nick Nurse a nice person? How do we perceive Nick Nurse at this point? Like, in some ways, he did a really good job of making everybody feel like he was a nice person. I mean, we saw him giving out turkeys at Thanksgiving. We saw him smiling. We saw him on Murdoch Mysteries. We saw him doing a lot of press where he seemed like a very nice kind of person. But I've also heard kind of stories since his departure, different places, people telling people that actually in real life he was a real dick. Like, if you were around him, he could be a real asshole and not a very nice person in some ways. I think it's very telling that Jrue is saying that about him because obviously he has a perception about Nick not being the nicest person in the world, if you would say that. But he doesn't care about that. He just wants to win, and he says he's a good coach. And the funny thing I think he's saying there is that he stands behind his players. You guys hire him in Milwaukee and see if he'll stand behind anybody being lazy or doing different things or not being like he will put people in the doghouse. And he will also throw you under the bus in interviews. So if you think that, Jrue, you go ahead and think that. So now the other thing, he said something about him being like a really strategic coach or a really smart coach or something like that. That's in debate also right now. Like in some ways, we are kind of fed up with him and how he's running our team by the end of things, kind of like how the Bucks were with Budenholzer. So it's like, listen, he has his limits, and he may not be exactly what you think, Jrue Holiday. But yeah, this is very interesting. Obviously, Jrue Holiday wants Nick Nurse to be the next coach of Milwaukee Bucks. That is what I took from that interview. And whatever, go ahead, go coach the Bucks, whatever. It makes me so mad in some ways how this is all turning out and how things have been going. But it is what it is. What can we do? All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the comments. How do you feel about the Jrue Holiday statement? And how do you feel about Nick Nurse? What's your opinion of him at this point? Is he just a really good coach in certain ways, but he's not a good people person? Is he like really a brilliant strategic person in basketball, or is that inflated and overblown and kind of full of shit from our experience as Raptor fans watching him the last couple of years? Is Jrue Holiday like very much politicking to get Nick Nurse to coach the Bucks? That seems like that's true. Mike is in first today. Let's see what Logical Raptors Fanatic has to say. Check out Logical Raptors Fanatic on YouTube, dropping his stuff on his channel at 2 o'clock on Saturdays every week. Mike, you go. Project Truth always. Salute the real ones. Yes, Mike, Logical Raptors Fanatic. Interesting take from Jrue. Yeah, I thought that this was very interesting when this came out yesterday. And I was struck by it. I was like, this dude is openly politicking for Nick Nurse to come and coach the Milwaukee Bucks. He obviously has his seal of approval. It's very, very interesting. Once again, this talk from Jrue Holiday and the way he's saying this is stirred up the hornet's nest as far as why has nobody made any kind of comments about Nick Nurse's departure from Toronto as far as Nick Nurse or the players. I know I have not let this go in some ways, but Nick Nurse's bitterness and some of this is really weird. One of the things that this reminds me of is often in Raptor games, we would see Nick finish the game, and if they lost or even if they won, it didn't matter. He would show poor sportsmanship where he would not talk to the coach. I think a lot of the coaches don't like him in the league. And it's sometimes when the game would end, if it was against a coach that was an adversary, he would turn his back and just walk away from the bench. He wouldn't even acknowledge the opposing coach or wave or even walk over and shake their hand or do anything that he would do that with people like Popovich, maybe a couple of the other coaches in the league that he respected or whatever, but a lot of them he will not. He will just turn around and walk away as soon as the game's over. That always struck me as bad sportsmanship. And in some ways pro sports at the highest level is kind of like the representation for how sports should be conducted at all levels, all the way down to like little kids starting out. And it's a poor example of sportsmanship. And it's always bugged me. It's something that I was taught when I was a very little kid, that you go and do the shake hand lineup and you go through and you say, hey, good game, good game, good game, whether you win or lose. It's just a part of building good sportsmanship and humanizing both teams, because we can get too verses and kind of denigrate the other side. You have to have respect and understand the humanity of both sides. And good sportsmanship is the bridge that links us in that kind of way. And I often saw Nick Nurse with very poor sportsmanship at the end of games. I didn't say anything about him because I was like, okay, he's just a G. I'm just going to let him be like, how he wants to be. He doesn't want to go talk to them, go ahead. But in hindsight, maybe that is something that I should have thought about that could kind of actually show the real Nick Nurse inside. The pettiness of him not going and shaking the hand of the other coach or even acknowledging them. Seriously, he would quite often, the game's buzzer's over, he turns his back and walks away and doesn't do anything in acknowledging the other side. I always found that kind of weird, but I was like, you know what? He's a great coach. He's doing good stuff for us. I don't care. But in hindsight, when I think about it, I'm kind of like, that's kind of a dick move in some ways. It's kind of a dick move. And it would be particular coaches he would freeze out and he wouldn't acknowledge. I don't know if it was personal vendettas or what it was. Another thing about Nick that kind of, I thought about it more in a different way. I thought it was a positive thing at times, and I do think it's still kind of a positive thing. But think about how he would go about it is probably not very nice. Maybe very much being a dick is, he had this policy after games, especially if they lost. He did not want to talk about the game to anyone. He'd go and talk in the interview in that post-game conference in the press room with the press. That's fine because he has to. But otherwise, no. He didn't want to talk to Masai. He didn't want to talk to Bobby. He didn't want to talk to most of the players. Maybe he'll take a little bit of a side in the locker room, but not really a whole lot. He doesn't do a whole lot of coaching after the game. He just doesn't want to get emotional and get really crazy and yell and be angry. That says a lot to me right there, that he's such a competitor, that he cared about winning, that he'd tell people after losses, don't talk to me about the game. And in some ways, that's kind of a control freak. Seriously, think about if somebody did come up to him and step in it with him, as far as like, Nick, let's talk about this from the game. He's like, I fucking told you, I don't fucking talk about the game after the game. How many times do I have to tell you this? You know, he could have been like that behind the scenes, and we had no idea because of this rule he had about not discussing the game on the game night after the game. You come in the morning, we'll talk about it in the morning in practice room, but we're not going to talk about it tonight. You know that, Earl. We don't talk about that tonight. Get the fuck out of my office. You know, it could be stuff like that, you know, that he could have been a real dick behind the scenes that we didn't realize. You know, him and Nate are birds of a feather. Birds of a feather flock together and they become buddies. We can kind of take some of the characteristics of Nate Bjorngren from his year in Indiana and everything that was found out about his personality flaws and kind of, you know, maybe infer that some of them are shared by Nick Nurse. It could very well be that he does not have a good demeanor with people that are lower on the totem pole as far as like working in the organization, and that he may be kind of like a dick to people that work under and stuff like that. Who knows? I mean, I'm reading stuff on Twitter where people are saying, yeah, we knew that Nick was a dick this whole time. It's just that, you know, we didn't make a big deal out of it because he was winning. Well, you start losing and he's still being like that. Well, it's no fun. You know, once again, the players not coming out and saying goodbye to him or saying any thank you to him, specifically somebody like Pascal Siakam or even Fred VanVleet. I mean, Fred has nothing to lose at this point. He probably could have came out and made a post thanking Nick Nurse, just like Giannis thanked Coach Bud, but he did it. Not a single one of the players did, and still Nurse is silent himself on his exit with Toronto. It's very, very petty, very bitter, and very like speaks a lot to his character. I mean, seriously, everybody else can ignore it down in the States and think that they get in the next greatest thing like sliced bread with their team, whether it's Phoenix, Milwaukee, or Philadelphia, whoever's interviewing Nick. It doesn't matter. You guys can all think this, but realize this. You guys better win. And if you don't, he's going to be a toxic thing around your team, because that's what I've learned this year. If the team isn't winning, he can be very toxic for the team. And I think that's what happened this year for the Raptors. So you better win if he shows up, and you'll be fine as long as you're winning. But if you're not, things can go south real quick, especially if you have some hotheads on your team that are not the kind of players that we have here in Toronto. It could get a lot worse, and there could actually be a very much a versus between Nick Nurse and a singular player on his new team that he's going to. Watch. Seriously. It may not have happened with the Raptors because the Raptors are respectful, good guys, but it may happen on another team where Nick shows up and there may be somebody on the team that he will not get along with. Watch. I'm gonna predict this right now. All right, let's see. Cool Cat is here. Good to see Cool Cat. Good morning, Raptor Free crew. TGIF. Jrue spoke on Nick Nurse probably after getting clearance from Giannis. All these teams salivating on getting Nick Nurse as a coach. I know, it's crazy. I mean, listen, I understand. We really liked him. You know, somebody brought this up in the last day, and I think it's so true. And that Nick Nurse may need to hear this real quick. You know, you're nothing without Masai Ujiri. You're nobody without Masai Ujiri, Nick Nurse. Nobody who would know who your name is. Nobody would know who you are. You'd just be another assistant coach in the league that nobody would know who you are. Masai Ujiri made you, Nick Nurse. You need to hear that, because you would not be anyone if Masai had not taken a gamble on hiring you to replace Dwayne Casey. That he really took a huge gamble bringing in a rookie head coach like he did, and it paid off so huge. But in a lot of ways, Nick, the only way you get that to happen is because of Masai Ujiri, and I think you've forgotten that. I think you really have. And then in anything, I don't care if you thank us, the city, or anybody. You need to thank Masai, even though he was the one who fired your ass, because he's the one who gave you the chance in the first place. And in some ways, you're not respecting that he opened the door for you and made you who you are, because you would not be sought after like this by all these other teams if it wasn't for Masai Ujiri. And you know deep down inside that's the damn truth, Nick Nurse. You know that's the damn truth, Nick Nurse. You know it is. Yeah, it is. Nameless is saying, Buongiorno, la mi squadra. Yes, and familia. Yes, Nameless. Yes, my squadra is my familia, and it is the Raptor Freak familia. Yes, yes, more Italian lessons. Please, my paisan. Yes, yes. Fiercey saying, "Good morning, family, and happy Friday." It seems the Bucks fans had the same issues with Coach Bud that we had with Nick Nurse, so let them have them. It's really crazy. I know there probably are very strong parallels between Coach Bud and Nick Nurse, and Bucks fans just don't know yet that they're just getting another version of Coach Bud, and they don't know this. I'm telling you, he's probably not very much different than your coach that you already had there. In fact, their resumes are very, very similar, and they're also kind of the same kind of fiery. I'm going to look like a butthole mouth coming out of my face kind of look on the sideline. Both of them make that butthole face. Ooh, ooh. They make. I'm gonna call that the butthole face. Yeah, they make that butthole face. Budenholzer and Nurse. Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. I've not heard anything about Coach Budenholzer. I'm serious. I'm a little worried. Like, why? Is it really that he's told teams that he is not going to be coaching next year, that he needs a year off, that maybe he's reeling from his brother's death? He just wants to take time for his family. But we are not hearing Coach Bud's name thrown around in these searches. He is not in these conversations as finalists. And that's really weird to me. Maybe it is that we just got him on the down low and nobody knows it and nobody's going near him or something. I don't know. There are the murmurs that the Raptors have already figured out who their next head coach is going to be, and it's just a matter of time, and we're just going to hire him. But I have no idea. It's such a mystery right now. In some ways, I enjoy the mystery of it, and I'm really going to be excited when more is revealed. But man, I want to know what is going on with our coach. We got to find this out over the next month for sure. If we don't know by this time next month, that's going to be a serious problem. We should know in the next 2 to 3 weeks for sure who the coach will be for the Raptors next year. Cool Cat is saying that let's see what Cool Cat's saying. I love seeing everybody here today. This is awesome. All right, let's see. Cool Cat is saying, wow, I guess the word is out that Nick Nurse is not a nice person. Wow, I heard David Thorpe calling him a weirdo. Didn't realize the league's impression of him. Nick Nurse is really a mad scientist. Laugh out loud. He's a little eccentric in some ways. You know, he really hides it well with his charm and his smiliness. But yeah, maybe he's a little crazy. I mean, I saw little bits of it at the coach's open house, but not really. He was a really kind of a nice guy, and I really enjoyed the coach's open house this past year. He had some really nice things that he said to us. He said, keep teaching people the game. And he was like very much an ambassador for the game and the sport of basketball and wanting to push it further and progress it. This is such a weird situation. I really do feel like Nick didn't totally go the way he wanted to this year. I think that part of it is that this wasn't natural for him, how things evolved at the end of the year. And that's why he's acting so out of character, is that this is not how he thought things would develop. It could very well be that he did really want to stay with the Raptors and he was trying to do some strategic kind of things to up his value so that he can get a uptick on his contract this summer and stay with Toronto. Well, Masai called him on his bluff and he said, you know what? I'm just firing you because I don't like your little games. You know, you're little messing around, like kind of, are you, what did you do at the end of the season to screw up our postseason? Like what is this little manipulations you're doing? You're doing this because you want to redo your contract this summer? Well, you know what? Fuck you. You're fired. You're out of here. And Nick may have been like, wait, you're going to fire me? That's not supposed to be the plan. The plan's supposed to be that I'm supposed to strong arm you into paying me $10 million a year. No, Nick, sorry. After this performance this year and how bad you did more than 6 of George Karl's mistakes this year. I counted them. You had 12 actually. And listen, the way that you kind of just bowed out against Chicago in the play-in is really, really bad. And we have problems here with the perception around the team where, we need to have some sort of change. So, I'm just going to fire you because it's going to be helpful. And I'm kind of mad at you for a couple of things right now too. You say, wait, no, you were supposed to feel like I need you more than ever. And now you're supposed to pay me more money to stay here. No, I'm sorry, you're fired. And you say, well, good luck with those guys then. Is that how it went down? It could have been like that. Seriously. That may be why Nick is so bitter, is because he didn't think we'd actually fire him. That he thought that he was so a made man that he could get away with whatever. He got a little too arrogant, a little too big for his britches, and maybe he didn't realize Masai's a serious man. He will fire your ass. Yeah, he will. He will fire your ass, Nick Nurse, and he did. It's really, really weird. It's really, really interesting. The more I think about different things, it's very interesting. All right, another interesting thing we could look about Nick Nurse is his friendship with Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry and Nick are very much best friends outside of basketball. Now, what would bring these two guys together? A high level of wanting to compete at the highest level? Sure, of course. But maybe they're both kind of assholes in the same way, in some ways. Kyle is a nice guy, but he would admit to you he is also an asshole in certain ways. And it may be that Nick and Kyle have a certain brand of asshole that they share together. And that's part of why they bond together so well. I don't know. I'm just trying to speculate and figure out more about the very interesting side of Nick Nurse that has been put to us by Jrue Holiday. Because that's the perception of the other players in the league, is what Jrue Holiday is saying yesterday, that they don't think he's a very nice guy. Oh, he's not the nicest guy. He's a dick, but he's a good coach. And we'd love to play for him because we believe in him to win. So it's an interesting kind of thing, because nobody really talked about him being a dick around Toronto or any of the players or the press or the organization. It's just that maybe from the outside, other teams, players, and coaches could see who he was up close and hear him and be like, yeah, that dude's kind of a dick, man. But you know what? I'd love to play for him. He's a great coach. It's very weird. And yeah, I hate how right David Thorpe was about Nick Nurse right now. In the middle of the season, it was chaotic, and it was like, I gotta stand up for Nick because he's captain of the ship. He's sailing this team as being the coach. I don't want a dumpster fire in the middle of the season. And I hear some nobody who I don't know who he is talking down Nick Nurse. Well, in some ways, he was warning us. And I thank you, David Thorpe, in some ways. But also at the same time, maybe it wasn't the right time to do it. But maybe he was also trying to shout out and warn us all. I don't know. It's such a weird situation. It is so weird. It is so, so weird. Tom Duke is here. Good to see West Coast Raptor Freak president. Tom Duke is in the house. Tom Dookie Duke. Scotty Barnes, Switch family, 2022 family forever. Forever, Tom, forever. We'll have that time with Scotty forever. Yes. Tom saying Nick Nurse is dead to me. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a second. Justin, can you do me a favor? Can you go into the arboreal forest and start taking some trees down? Because we need a casket. Because Tom Duke has said that Nick Nurse is dead to him. All right, will you go do that? All right, go ahead. Yeah. All right. Whoa. Adios, sucker. Whoa. All right, let's see. I was a huge fan until his boneheaded comments. The 1 month to the draft, how long till we hear from Bobby about who is our new coach? It's got to be soon. TGIF, good morning. All right, Tom, bringing a little bit of anger and mad, but also a sunshiny TGIF and good morning also. I like that dichotomy. Yeah, you know what? It's very disappointing, Tom. It's very, very disappointing. I'm going to tell you right now that in some ways, Nick Nurse may end up getting treated like Vince Carter by me. Yeah, I'm telling you, this will be how it happens. Now, listen, when he retires and he's an old man, he ain't got nothing to do with basketball no more. I will honor him once again for this championship that he got with us. But I don't think I will while he's still coaching. Once he takes a job very soon, especially if it's in the Eastern Conference or the Atlantic Division. Yeah, we're going to hate him even more, Tom Duke. And the great thing is we know a lot about him, so we can really tear him down from this side on the Raptors side. It's too bad because it didn't have to be like this, Nick. You're petty. You're a dick, apparently. And now, we're going to have to be dicks to you, the Raptors nation. And, the trolls and the assholes and the really negative, toxic people in our fan nation will definitely come after you. They already were. They're coming after you all season already. Well, now the good, positive fans like us are going to be coming after you also because of this. I mean, that's what you should have done. Damage control, man. All you needed to do was get your agent, Clutch, to put out a press statement saying, thank you, Toronto, for 10 great years. That's all you fucking had to do, Nick. That's all you had to do. But you couldn't even do that. And now we're at this point where you're not the very nicest guy. Well, we get it. That's not very Canadian, Nick. and you're still representing Team Canada as our head coach. So you better be a little bit more Canadian since you have to coach the young Canadians in the international play this summer. So you better act a little Canadian still, Nick Nurse, and get us some manners because Canadians have manners. All right, just so you know. Nameless is saying, I hope Nick Nurse ends up in the WNBA. Whoa, whoa, that's just from left field out of whoa, Nameless. Whoa, whoa. I mean, I don't see that, but I mean, I guess. I mean, that's interesting. If he ends up coaching the WNBA, I'd be shocked. He may bring some of those young ladies to tears. He'd coming in there and say, oh, how did you get pregnant? He may do it worse than Becky Hammond. Seriously, you think Becky Hammond stepped in it with that pregnant player? Well, Hamby, you better watch out. You better watch out if Nick Nurse comes down there. He may be yelling at young ladies and they'd be crying all over the place. I mean, they're tough. I'm not going to say that they're not tough, but, listen, he may be a real jerk. And he could come in there and say some really nasty things to people. And that's not the behavior of a head coach in the WNBA. You see, Becky Hammond's been suspended for the first two games of the WNBA season. Speaking of that, y'all check out your WNBA fantasy team. If you're in the Raptor Freak WNBA Fantasy League, we got good competition going on. I'm up real big on Tom, but then we got a good game between Edmund and Gerald, 407 to 350. And then we got Tada and Philadelphia Floppers led by David Saborin, 426 to 266. David's got a really good lead. Monique still leading over Fiercey in her matchup there. And then Cool Cat and MK, very, very close. That's the closest matchup, 317 to 304. We still got three more days of play in the first week. So there's still time to see how the matchups in the first week will land on your fantasy WNBA. Now, I think I've got a prize for the league, y'all. And listen, it kind of goes with what we're doing today. Now, this isn't a very long season, and it isn't a very long kind of thing, the WNBA Fantasy League we're doing. So it's not a huge prize, but it is a very special prize. And it is from the event that I was talking about just a little earlier, the Coaches Open House, the Open Coaches House from last fall that I went to, and I got this whistle from Nick Nurse and them. It's unopened. It's still in the package. It's a Raptors whistle. As you can see, this is going to be the prize for the WNBA League. And you know what else? I'm going to sign the back. The Raptors Freak will autograph this whistle, and this is the officially my whistle. I don't have another one of these. This is going to be going to somebody, and it's going to be yours. You can keep it in the package if you want. The coach's whistle. This is Nick Nurse's coach's whistle. I'm going to be signing the back, and you can keep it in the package or take it out and do all you want. So I'm thinking this will be the WNBA prize for whoever wins our fantasy league is official Raptors coach's whistle from the Coaches Open House, Nick Nurse's last coach open house, and you can have this. So yeah, not a bad prize. I mean, it's nothing big and spectacular. I'm not going to have everything crazy, but it is special to me because it is something that I got at the Raptors Open Coaches Open House. So, and like I said, if you want me to sign it, I will. I'll sign my autograph on the back of it. Not that it's a big deal or anything, but if you want the Raptor Freak to sign it and make it even more cool, it's the package. You can always take it out and just keep the package and have the whistle still. I mean, it's however you want to deal with it. But I think this is the prize. It's not a huge big deal, but it's kind of cool. It's got the Raptor symbol on the side of it. It's unopened. It's in pristine condition, and it's directly from Nick Nurse to me. So if you want the whistle that Nick Nurse gave me, you can get it. That's what the prize is for WNBA. All right, there you go. All right, let's see. Trevor J's here. Good to see Trevor J, a great, upstanding Raptor Freak. We love Trevor J. Always good to see Trevor J in the comments in the morning. Good morning, Boston. Ooh, make it very interesting last night, but I don't think they're going to win. Miami's going to get the win. All right, let's talk about the game last night. Once again, Miami rolling over and dying, really not looking like they got it right now. And I am a little worried that Boston can make this history. Y'all really need to win this next game. You can't have your starters play so crappy. And because Gabe Vincent was out, Kyle Lowry started last night, and he did not play well last night. I mean, those guys had a really tough game in the starting lineup for Miami last night. Really, really bad shooting. Really, really bad shooting overall by the whole team. They did make up for it a bit in the second half. Like Duncan Robinson was their best player, hitting a few threes and getting them going and kind of getting them in the right direction. But really, they were getting trounced by Boston the whole entire game. In some ways, Boston needed this. But it's funny because Jaylen Brown is really signaling that he does not want to be a Celtic. Seriously. He's saying that, all right, y'all let us get two. Don't let us get the next one. doesn't want to play anymore. Jaylen Brown does not want to play anymore. It's very, very evident. And he wants Miami to beat them and put them out. In fact, he's kind of like throwing himself in the games. Like he's not playing as well as he could in some ways. Like I noticed that about him. Like his heart is not for playing for the Celtics anymore. And he's kind of wanting the Miami Heat to just put them out of their misery. So this is such a weird situation. Now they're gaining some momentum because they've won 2 games in a row now. And of course, the ESPN NBA machine wants them to come back and make history. In the year that Bill Russell died, they want to see the Celtics get to the finals. And if they do it by coming back from being down 0-3, well, that's all the sweeter for the story that they write. That's why Miami has to stop this right away. They need to make sure they win in Miami tomorrow night, because if you don't, you've lost the series. Boston will win in game 7 if you do not take care of business in game 6, Miami. You've had a bunch of chances, and well, your best chance is going to be tomorrow night, because if you don't, you're done. You're not going to the finals. It will be Celtics versus Nuggets at that point, and they will make history by being the first team to ever come back from an 0-3 deficit. You really want to do that, Miami? You really want that on your resume, Spoelstra? No, you go and take care of business tomorrow, Kyle and Jimmy, and stop playing with your food. Seriously, stop playing with your food. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is crazy, Trevor. This is crazy. The Celtics do not need to keep going. They're really not totally together right now. Coach Joe has not got the best confidence right now, as Cool Cat said the other day, or I think it was Sue said it also, that Coach Joe is not confident in his interviews. He very seems like he's a broken kind of person in some ways, So, oh man, the Celtics are in bad shape. I don't know how they're doing this. It's just because Miami sucks all of a sudden. Miami would go through these parts of the season where they were really on and playing very well, and then they'd have really dog periods where they're kind of not doing well at all, and they're down. And now they're hitting one at the most unopportune time where they're not playing at a high level and they kind of look like shit. And that's kind of been their wave this whole season. They've had really bad bottoms and really good highs at different times the whole season. Well, we're seeing where they were going real well, and now they've hit their bottom. They need to figure out how to get it back up there. And I think Jimmy Butler is a huge key to that happening. So we got to see. Fiercely saying also, Nick Nurse barely waves at opponents' head coaches at the end of the games rather than dapping them or hugging them or anything. I know. And I wonder about, like, there's so much you can like overlook, and you didn't see because you didn't think it was very big deal. It's kind of innocuous. And then you wonder about, like, there's so much about it that's weird. Like, seriously, none of the players were very warm towards hearing he was gone. And none of them were like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna miss coach" or anything like that. There's like, yeah, so be it. That's how it is. I mean, Chris in particular on Hustle Play, when they talked about Nick Nurse in the last Hustle Play podcast of the season, he was just kind of like, yeah, so what? He's gone. Whatever. This is a guy who's played under him for like 5 years. And he doesn't really care. He's like, yeah, okay. I've spent 5 years and this has been my coach, and he's gone. Okay. He's like, I don't care who coaches us as long as I get minutes. That's all he cares about. It's like, he don't care that Nick Nurse is gone. He had no emotion about it. It was really, really telling to me. It's like, yeah, the coach has changed. He didn't really say anything about whether he was sad about it, upset about it, or happy about it. In some ways, when you have a very middle reaction, it's really because maybe you are happy about it, but you can't show that you're happy about it. Seriously, like, he can't be like Mike Roach. Yeah, I'm so happy Nick Nurse got fired. Oh my gosh, so much pressure is relieved in the team, and like good vibes are coming. Trust me, Mike. He can't be like that. He's gonna be just like, you know what? My mama taught me, if I don't have anything nice to say, I'm not going to say anything at all. And that's what Chris did in that Hustle Play. He said, listen, I'm not really going to comment on Nick Nurse. I'll indirectly just say I'm going to talk about the next coach, and that's it. It's very, very interesting. It says a lot right there. Guardian Transit saying, I say tax, no tax. Raptors need to add good pieces and go for the gumbo. Bring Serge back to the bench. I love it. I'm really big on Serge Ibaka returning to the Raptors in some sort of capacity. Really, really big on that. And yeah, I don't give a shit about the luxury tax. But I'm worried that MLSE might at this point. The way that they're acting, like I said yesterday, is really not good. And it's toxic for the whole entire organization, whether it's the Leafs, the TFC, or the Raptors. And I don't want that toxic messing with us. So whoever we can get, we need another guy like Lewicki or Petty to step in there and be a little bit of a buffer between the crazy ass stupid board and giving Masai and Bobby room and space to do their jobs without interference. That is something we need. We need somebody to get hired and replace some people. Now, there's somebody in the job who's just not doing it. They're actually just like ineffective. And that's part of the problem. They had a really good person doing it, and then they got let go or they left or something like that. And then they didn't follow Lewicki's rules of getting a better person in replacement. And they got a worse person. And that person is not effective in shielding the teams from the board like the people before him. So this is part of the problem. We don't have people protecting our sports teams from these idiots at the very top, like we had maybe a couple of years ago. So we need to watch out and really pay attention to MLSC's meddling, and hopefully they'll just like chill out, or we'll just get good protection from them. At least the Raptors. The Leafs already getting meddled with their Kyle DeBoss getting fired at the end of the season, even though he's been a very successful GM for them. And it didn't make any sense to fire him right now. It really didn't. I don't follow the Leafs. I don't follow hockey, but I know that the Leafs have been more successful in the last couple of years. And if this dude's been in part of it, why are you firing him right now? It's so stupid. Well, I don't understand how you could fire somebody for a collapse in hockey. Because in a lot of ways, hockey is like just the way that the puck bounces around on the ice. And sometimes it's like, really, like, can you really control that as a GM? There's so much more control over that with the players and the coaches. And the GM's kind of getting guys like, these guys are good. They could be good. They could beat anybody. But in hockey, it's like, it's so weird to me. How do you make a winning team? It's such a crapshoot in some ways. Any team across the league could get a bit of luck with the puck and the way it bounces around and start winning, but you're going to go fire your coach on a sport that's partly just based on luck. Oh, man. I don't know. See, that's a really bad move, and I hate it for the Leaf Nation and for Leaf fans because I think he was doing a good job, and I really question MLSE firing him like that. It's not smart. It really isn't smart. All right, let's keep going. Keep going in the comments. Mike is saying Nick is different type of guy, very tactical and straight line, so his demands and criticism aren't normal for most coaches. It works with vets. He is great tactical, but almost too truthful for rookies. Yeah, you might be right, Mike. And you're painting it in a good light in some ways. Somebody made the difference between strategic and genius. And there's something different. Like in some ways, all right, Nick Nurse and Coach Budenholzer, part of their criticism with the end of their tenures with their teams that they just left is that they were rigid and didn't change, or they really were too structured in certain ways that were flexible. And that's why they wanted Budenholzer out, because he was doing certain things that was pissing Bucks fans off and it was frustrating them. Well, this is the same kind of shit that was happening with us too, with Nick and the Raptors, is that he was doing certain things that was pissing us off too. So in a lot of ways, the problems that Bucks fans had with Budenholzer, they will find with Nick Nurse if they hire him. They don't know that yet. They don't know that yet, but they will find out. They will find out. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. Mike, I know. Listen, I want to speak all the praises of Nick Nurse in the world and stuff like that, but it may get real dark with him in the next few months. Just seriously, so be ready for that, Mike, and know that I'm not going to really stand up for him at this point. I am going to go on full offensive, especially if he takes a job for a rival of ours, especially Mike. So just so you know, and you can play devil's advocate and try and stand up for him, and I won't mind. People do that for Vince Carter in here all the time, also. And that's fine. We need that balance. So I appreciate that you do still want to find the positives about him and put them on blast. I was just like you, dude. I'm serious. When I got this whistle from Nick Nurse, I was like, dude, I just went to Coach Nick Nurse's open house earlier this season, and I was on cloud nine. I was like, dude, Nick Nurse is so cool. I've been a big disciple of Nick Nurse the whole time he's been here and very much been supportive to him. But once again, the shirt and the hat says Toronto Raptors. And that's who my allegiance is. And once you turn your back on us and you disrespect our team, that's where I go. I only go one place. I don't care what person it is in this franchise. I will stick with the Raptors. And that's all how it is. That's where my allegiance is. And Nick's crossed us in some ways. He has crossed us. You know, he has, even if it's just subtly, he has crossed us. Randolph saying, "Good morning, beloved Raptor freaks. Most informative gang. Blessings on you and your loved ones." Thank you, Randolph. And right back towards you, Randolph, and all your friends and family in your life. Blessings to everyone also. Thank you. And hey, hopefully I'm bringing the good information to you guys today. All right, here's a little story, a little segue off of what Randolph said. Adam Silver, in an interview yesterday, come out said that the NBA became too physical in the 1990s. That he does not have any interest in bringing back the hand check rule and making the defenses have another chance to have a chance in games. That he really likes the way the game is now, even if people think it's soft, that it should be the way it is, because you wouldn't have had a guy like Steph Curry doing what he's doing if the physicalness of the 90s existed in his era. Steph Curry would not be Steph Curry. And it's probably true, because they allow him to get free and he can get to places because you can't guard him without the hand check. And, he's basically saying that he didn't like the play in the 90s, Adam Silver, that the physicality that Michael Jordan had to go through against teams like the Knicks and the Heat is something he doesn't want to see in today's game. Well, this is the weird thing, Adam Silver, is that, listen, there's none of that physicality from like the Heat and the Knicks and all that stuff in the 90s anymore. But there is still physicality is very dangerous and could hurt your players. And that's specifically undercutting guys while they're up in the air and going to the basket. There's certain things y'all need to do to change that rule. Now, I've heard in the last couple of days that the NBA is looking at giving a technical foul to players that flop. They have heard the problems, the people complaining about how ugly it is and how stupid it is when people flop like Joel Embiid, and they were sick of it. And they want to possibly start doing this summer league. This summer, they may start calling a technical for people that flop in games. We've seen them very successfully adjust the rules to stop that leg kick out to try and get a foul that James Harden and Trae Young would do all the time. Well, that's kind of changed. Well, the next rule they may change is the flopping. So if they see a lot of flop artists like falling all over the place, well, they may be calling Joel for technicals for falling over on purpose next season. I'm all about that. Seriously, that's a good thing that Adam Silver may be doing. But I don't necessarily agree with him and him not liking the 90s for being too physical. But at least the NBA is being very forward thinking and trying to take care of some of the issues right away. Some people are saying that Jeremy Sohan is the reason why the NBA is looking to flopping, because during the last series with the Lakers, he tweeted that if LeBron is so great, why is he the king of the flops? And I thought that was hilarious. And Jeremy immediately got all the LeBron and Laker fans after him on social media, yelling, giving him all the grief and saying all this stuff because they come after people when people are negative about LeBron. Well, he was getting the brunt of it, and he loves it. In some ways, Jeremy Sohan is set up to be like Dennis Rodman next to the admiral of Victor Wembanyama. That in some ways, this dude's mouth is opening up, and he's talking way more trash already because he knows Victor's coming and that the Spurs are going to be a force. Jeremy's a very good player already himself. In fact, he's underrated. He's playing this whole Rodman motif, but he's a very good scorer also. And that's something that Rodman wasn't. I'm very, very happy about the Victor sweepstakes going to San Antonio. I said that all year. I'd be very, very happy if he went to San Antonio, and thank God that's the way it happened, because I'm watching his highlights. He had another game in the last day or so, and he is insane. Like, this 7'5" kid makes Rudy Gobert look like a little guy. And some of the stuff he does, he's so agile and quick for that height, and he has ball handling skills. He's going to be a force. Like, everybody talking about Chet last summer. Fuck Chet. We saw what happened with Chet. Chet got hurt before the season even started. Well, Victor's not going to be like Chet. And in fact, Chet's going to be like Victor on Wish is what's going to happen next season. Watch. Victor's going to come in, and he's going to be badass. I'm sorry. I may be a little bit of a Spurs freak in the near future just because we may be in a bad period a little bit for us. And I may be like, whoa, very enthusiastic about the Spurs. And I apologize. I will try not to get too much into Spurs freak mode and stay in Raptors freak mode, because Raptors freak mode is the numero uno for sure. But there is a strong enthusiasm building in me about wanting to watch Victor Wembanyama in a Spurs jersey next season. Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. So just a little news and notes about Adam Silver and, foul calls and flopping, and then also the physicalness in the 90s. He didn't like it, and he doesn't want it to come back. As much as 90s NBA fans want that style to come back, it ain't coming back because Adam Silver don't like it. and he doesn't want it. That's for sure. Yeah. G saying Nurse seems like a basketball elitist. Maybe that's what motivated him. Not sure. He's interesting. That's for sure. Okay, I like what G's saying here, and maybe that's part of the reason why he was like the haves and have-nots with our own roster. The haves, the starting five, and maybe the next two guys on the bench, and then the have-nots, the rest of the whole team. Yeah, maybe that's like that. He always said the one thing I care about is giving the Raptors the best chance to win no matter what. And that means overplaying the very, very creme de la creme best players on the team to almost 40 minutes or above 40 minutes all the time. And, he kept using that as an excuse. My whole job is to give the Raptors the best possible chance to win. So to him, that was really, really, really leaning on certain players hard and heavy for many, many minutes. And yeah, that is a little bit elitist in the way he did his minutes with the starters versus the bench. That's very much like that for sure, G. And maybe he is a little bit of a snob. I mean, I could see him being cool with everyday, ordinary people, but how is it? Maybe he's a basketball snob in the whole industry with other people around him. You got to think about in some ways the way Nick Nurse's career path with coaching, he had to be super competitive and cutthroat. There may be some people he burned on the way up to get to where he got to, used as stepping stones back in England, all over the place, maybe back in the CBA or Iowa Energy. There's been places where he's had people behind him. And even the move from him being an assistant coach on our team to being the head coach after Casey got fired, how much of that was all like because of his competitiveness and his kind of personality flaws as being an asshole was a part of all this too. You got to think about all that. The competitiveness of him could have been toxic in certain ways also, other than just competitive on the court and helping the team to win. Fun guy saying, how has absolutely nobody mentioned how Nick always grossly rubbed his ring finger? I swear that finger must have gotten must be rotten from the ring and rubbing. Laugh out loud. Please tell me someone else paid attention as well. He had a couple of nervous fidgets. We all kind of do in certain ways. I mean, he did that kind of stuff. I thought it was kind of pretentious when he started showing up at press conferences with a ring, a pinky finger. That was so weird when he was doing the pinky finger thing. It's like, is this dude like really trying to be a G or something like that? What is going on here? Like, what is this whole thing? It's like some people may be like, oh, Nick Nurse has got a pinky ring kind of bling going on. But there was something about that was kind of arrogant to me in a certain way. Like he just wore it all of a sudden. He didn't wear it all the time, but you would see it sometimes. And then, of course, the Nick Nurse branding with the hats and the shirts and all that kind of stuff. That's something I don't know of any other coach in the league who had branding for themselves. Seriously, can you think about it? Not even Doc. Doc Rivers maybe could have had branding for himself, but no, he doesn't. I think it's really just Nick who has branding for himself out of every single coach in the whole entire league, maybe in the history of the league. I can't remember a single other coach having his own logo and brand like Nick does. That's very interesting to me in some ways. Nick was weird in press conferences in different ways. But yeah, rubbing the finger, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Even in the games, you'd see him kind of doing weird, fidgety kind of actions like that during the games. Good to see you, Fun Guy, by the way. Holding it down out in the 905, Mississauga country. Fun Guy's my dude out west. Yeah, hold it down on the west side. I'm over here on the east side, baby. Yeah. Fiercely saying, glad I'm not the only one who noticed that he would brush off the other coaches. Yeah, I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. It's like he's our coach, and I don't want to talk about ugliness or negative things or put light on it. But now, and after hindsight, yeah, we should talk about why he would brush off the other coaches somehow in some way. He really isn't a good role model. And once again, I take into questioning that his whole PhD in sports leadership. That that's not how you lead young men, is to be a poor example. And in some ways, I think it's a farce that Nick Nurse got some sort of PhD in sports leadership. Like, whatever, dude, whatever. I know. Listen, this just put the pure truth on him and Adrian going and getting PhDs in this. That in some ways it's a prestige thing. In some ways it's a thing to put on a resume to look good, to go get other jobs. I understand it. And it's really that kind of thing. It's like, we could say last year we had 2 PhDs on our coaching staff. And they were the only 2 in the whole entire league, and only 2 out of 3 out of the whole entire history of the league. as far as coaches. Nobody went and got PhDs other than Nick and Adrian. Well, what is the drive to make a guy who's in the middle of an NBA career as coaching, he's still finding moonlighting time to go and get this doctorate in this team sports thing? And even the other crazy thing is him and Adrian were doing it separately and they didn't realize it. And then they came together and they were in the same program and actually kind of graduated together. Now I can get Adrian Griffin. He's trying to get over that hump and get a head coaching job as an assistant for so long. But Nick trying to get a PhD in this while he's already got a job that's already really secure and in a good place. In some ways, why do you need to buff up your resume so much with a PhD in leadership? You know, that to me made me wonder. It's like, in some ways. And like maybe you weren't focusing enough on the team because you're doing so much studies otherwise. That's a little selfish in some ways to try and get a PhD while you're coaching an NBA franchise at the same time. I mean, seriously, think about that whole situation with that. Why would they go get PhDs? It's good for your resume. They want to further their education. No, they want more money. They want the jobs. And that is what Nick got. He's going to get more money in a different job. And his resume having PhD on it means something. Well, it doesn't to me anymore because I think it's a sham. That seriously, he's got a PhD in sports leadership and he acts like how he acts. He's not a good leader. Seriously, he's a good coach. He may know basketball, but I don't think he's a very good leader. And that may be why he had to go to school to learn more about it. Yeah. Let's see. Nameless is saying maybe Nick Nurse ends up in Milwaukee and causes chaos with their franchise too. Nick Nurse has become a problem child. That's what I'm saying. That could very well happen. It could be that Giannis and him don't get along. Seriously. That it may be like Giannis is comparing him to Nick to Budenholzer. He's like, Coach Bud, him and I, we had a very good relationship when I love him. But you're an asshole, Nick. I thought you'd be better than this. He was like, no, this is who I am. I'm Nick Nurse. Ha ha, bitch. This is get used to it. Yeah. Tweet, 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 tweet. It's like it could be like that he rubs maybe Giannis the wrong way. And then all of a sudden, Giannis is like, I don't want to be in Milwaukee anymore. And then like the Bucks are like, we hired Nick Nurse and he destroyed our team. Oh my gosh. Yeah, all right. That's what the outcome is. I'm all about it, Nameless. That sounds great to me. Tom Duke saying, the ring finger. Yeah, boy, fun guy. You're right about Nick rubbing his ring. I don't know. Fiercely saying, my daughter plays at high school level. Imagine a coach who doesn't want to constructively discuss a loss and motivate teenagers. They would give up real quick. They'd feel like shit. In some ways, I don't like that whole method that he has because in some ways you want to talk to them when they're fresh. Like right after the game, that maybe when really strong emotions are going through the players' like bodies and they're feeling how it feels. And sometimes a coach can have very inspiring, good, connecting speeches after the game in that kind of way. But more often we'd see highlights on Open Gym. He'd come in and he'd say, all right, guys, come on in here. Come on in, guys. 1, 2, 3, Raptors. And he doesn't say anything to any of them. He may say something like, all right, shoot around tomorrow at 10 a.m. All right, that's it. Is he taking anybody assigned personally and doing like personal coaching with guys, maybe between the bench and coming to the back? Or is he just like not talking to them? He's like, no, you can't talk to me. No, you want to talk to me about the game tonight in your minutes? I'm sorry. I don't talk about the game right now. I'm going home. Yeah. It could be as easy as that. And at the level of your daughter, of course, the coach needs to be available and communicative to the players as much as possible, because then they're not being a good coach or mentor or having access to them. So maybe there wasn't good access to Coach Nick after the games from the players. And that may have been part of the disconnect with them. The whole fact that none of them wanted to get up and do the Let's Go Raptors thing at the end of the season. Delano, the only one, the 45 bus, Rexdale, Toronto's own, is the only one stepping up there and putting his hand up there with Nick Nurse at the end. Everybody else sitting on their ass, just watching it go down. Says so much right there. Cool Cat saying, thank you for your part in the chip, Nick. Nick Nurse, the menace is what I call him. He wants to win at all costs. He doesn't give a fuck about anything else. He swears at refs all the time. Yeah, I don't mind that part of him. There's certain things about that are super attractive, and it's what Jrue Holiday thinks is attractive also. But There's other toxic residue around it also, obviously. And you better be winning, because if you're not winning, your team's losing and they're having a hard time, you're going to have a hard time with Nick. Trust me. You're going to have a hard time with Nick. And that's what we found out this year. If you're having a very tough year where you lose like 5 or 6 games in a row a couple times in the beginning of the season, yeah, you're going to have a hard time. And we'll have to see. They're going to be comparing, if like they hired him in Milwaukee, they're going to compare him like crazy to Coach Bud. Everybody is, the fans, the players, the organization. They're all going to compare him to Coach Bud, and he's going to have to be just as successful as him. And if he isn't, and if he's different, and he has kind of like, maybe he isn't as good all of a sudden with the Milwaukee Bucks, and he doesn't do as well as Coach Bud, it could turn around really bad for him really fast in different ways. Fun Guy's saying, all right, hang on. Let me see what Fun Guy is saying here. La 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 la. Hang on, it jumped, of course. I love all the emoticons I'm seeing here. I'm gonna definitely read Tom's emoticons. Okay, Fun Guy saying, I actually overlooked that aspect that our players didn't say anything to Nurse in appreciation media wise. Makes you think they really didn't like him on his way out. Yeah, well, they obviously had no love lost for him, is maybe what it is. They respected him as the coach. They maybe really liked him, when they're winning, and they're like, yeah, I feel good having him on the sideline. He's so smart. He can make these tactical changes. They bought into him as far as, we're going to do what he wants us to do, because maybe he's a madman behind the scenes. And if they don't follow it, you're like, you got to run all over the place like a chicken with his head cut off and do this defensive scheme that I want, guys. Just do it. And he did give them credit at the end of the season, that Nick did say that our guys worked really hard all season long, and they did what I asked them to do as far as running around on the defense and stuff. We just did not get the kind of results that our team was supposed to get this season with winning and losing. I have a lot of reasoning and why we didn't get the certain results in certain things. Now, one thing that somebody said is, we're going to get a new coach, and all of a sudden there's going to be ball movement on our team that has been lacking the last 2 years. And everybody will realize just how stupid Nick Nurse's system was on offense, and how we were not getting any kind of good ball movement or moving around on the court. And a new coach will come in, and they will have a very healthy ball movement and healthy offense for us all of a sudden. And we'll all realize just how Nick Nurse was bad for us on the offensive end, with his schemes and not getting things working, moving around, or how he did it. I think this is going to be a huge improvement next year, is that we're going to see a way more capable offense with a different coach that does better with this. And we're going to realize just how much Nick's system was holding back our specific players and excelling and being good players, just because he wanted to run a dumbass system the way he was running. And we're going to be very surprised by this. I'm going to make a prediction right now. The next head coach will have a much better offense, and the Raptors will score much more capably next season. And it will be directly related to Nick Nurse. Directly related. Let's see. Mike's saying, assuming Nick isn't good after the league has shown his true value isn't logical. He's actually a great coach. We nitpick, but every coach has issues. We're acting like the grass is always greener. Well, Mike, I gotta go with what we're going with our ship here, the Raptors. We're a franchise is the Raptors. I'm not a Nick Nurse stan. I'm not a fan of Nick Nurse, just solely him. I like Nick Nurse. I still do. I like him as a person. I really appreciate what he's done, but right now I'm mad at him, and we're gonna have to see what his next move is first. I'm not saying that he's not a good coach. I'm just trying to write a future for him that's going to be a failure. Because seriously, I don't want him to go to Philadelphia and start kicking ass. I don't want him to go to Milwaukee and win championships there. No, Mike. I want to portend and predict bad things for him, where he has failure, and then he realizes he had it so good in Toronto and then he messed up. And then also, we don't want our division rivals or rivals in the Eastern Conference to get better from him either. So listen, a lot of this is just hot air that we do on social media. ESPN does it. Other YouTube channels do it. That's just my part of the hot air. And I'm allowed to have an opinion. And I'm going to start talking about how there could be destinies where he has utter failure, especially that whole Giannis versus him thing. Ooh, that's juicy. And that could be very real and realistic. In some ways, Giannis, in some ways, is the most important person in Milwaukee. And if Nick and Giannis do not get along, that's a huge problem. And hey, I wouldn't be upset if that's the truth, seriously, at this point. So there's nothing in it for us, Mike. So you go ahead and keep protecting Nick, but I'm not going to. And it may upset you or bug you or something like that, but that's fine. I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he's a good coach. He's limited in some of the things that he has blind spots on, but overall, he is a very good coach. You're right. But I don't want him to be a good coach going forward. I want him to have failure over and over again. How about that? Yeah. Tom Duke's saying butthole face. Yeah, butthole face. That's what they used to do. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Budenholzer and Nick Nurse. Whoa, the butthole faces. Yeah. We had dual butthole faces in Milwaukee and Toronto with their coaches. Whoa, whoa. Yeah, laughing at it. Yeah. Namus has got the peach and the dookie and the butthole face. I see that. You guys have made that picture is the official butthole emoticon, the orange one with the weird teeth and the one big eye. That is going to be the official Raptor Freak butthole face emoticon. So Tom, Fiercey, anybody else in the chat, if you ever want to make butthole face, that is the one. So just make butthole face in the future, and then we'll know what you mean. It could even be shorthand for either Coach Bud or Coach Nick. Yeah. Tom's laughing about it. I love it. That's another new little fun thing. The butthole face emoticon. Yeah, we got laughing going on about that. All right, fun guy saying, got to disagree with you, Lex, and agree with Logical. I think Nick is still that gangbuster coach. He's good. He could go and win a chip with any of these teams. Just wasn't for us, coaching and personality. I think we just hit a bad spot where we were going to have a lull and have some bad things going on. And in some ways, he's not very good in those situations. Like I said, if your team is winning and there's no kind of problems and kind of finger pointing that can go on, then Nick's okay. He's okay in that kind of environment. But if there is bad stuff going on and the team is having trouble and struggling, he may be a big part of the problem. And that's what I'm saying there. You know, we know he's a good coach. He's very good at strategy. He's had very good like innovations and different things like that. But also I can make the argument that some of it is too stringent, too rigid, and too structured. And once again, I've said this a couple times last week, he would make a system and try and force fit the players into a system without thinking about making the system catering to the players and who they are. That he would just have the system. It's kind of like he'd sit at home in the summer and say, you know what, I'm going to do this year. We're going to do this crazy thing where we all just keep running after everybody. We initiate on the defense that they have to move the ball because we come with a double quick, and then we try and play catch up, running all around like this. Oh, I don't care if the players want to do it or not. I don't care if they actually fit this system or not. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to make the players do it, whether it's good for them or not, as far as their skills. That's what I'm saying. I want a coach that's going to come in and look at who's on the team and say, all right, Scotty, Pascal, this, and this, and I want you guys to do this. And I have built a system that will really showcase your strengths. Instead of just coming in like an arrogant asshole and saying, this is my system, y'all have to conform to it and just do it. Do you understand the difference in what I'm trying to explain here? It really is like Nick was doing a system where he didn't take into account every specific skill that our guys had and catered it to it. He really made a system out of his own head that he wanted them to just follow and comply with. And that's a difference. That's a difference. Some coaches are good at making systems that really benefit players because they really show off their strengths. Well, Nick wasn't necessarily that. I don't think he was in some ways. Yeah, you know what? Listen, you guys can be dissenters and stand up for Nick. We need that, honestly. But I'm going to be going really mean on him in the near, especially when I hear the news of when he takes a new job. I'm really going to go after him then. And if he doesn't have some sort of like statement for us at some point, I'm going to be like, what the fuck? Seriously, we deserve better than this, Nick. Seriously, the fans in the city did. I don't care if you're mad at Masai. I don't care if you're mad at the players even. I wanted to hear it for us because we paid a lot of money and supported this team while you were coaching it for 10 years, 5 as a head coach. And, we deserved it as the fans. Are you going to be dicks to us? You're going to be dicks to us that came to the open house and listened to you talk about coaching last fall and listened to you. And we were like, Coach Nick is so cool. We love him. And you're going to be dicks to us. Seriously, it's not good. It's not good. Fiercely saying you had 12, actually. Great conversation impersonation between Masai and Nick. Yeah, I love that whole part. I mean, Masai kept talking about at Denver, George Karl had this whole thing where he would tell us, give me 6 mistakes this season. I'm going to make 6 major coaching mistakes. Just give them to me. Make them have gimmies because I'm going to make mistakes. I'm human. But give me 6. And he's like, okay, we'll give you 6, George. And George would get 6 mistakes for the season. Well, that's kind of what Masai talking about, and maybe the way he kind of looks at coaches during the season. He's like, all right, you get 6 mistakes. This is what George Karl told me when I was with the Nuggets. And he's like, okay, all right. And Nick made way more than 6 mistakes this season. Like I said, he probably had double. He had 12. And maybe Masai was like, do I fire Nick or not, Bobby? He's like, well, how many mistakes are on the board with your George Karl mistakes board, Masai? Well, there's 12 up there now. Wow, that's way more than he's supposed to have. I know. I'm so on the fence. Should we fire him? Well, he did kind of screw us over at the end of the season with his stupid press conference. Yeah, he really did. What are the fans saying? They're saying he gave up on us, and the fans, and then the team gave up on him. Oh, yeah, that's bad. That's bad. All right, I guess I have to fire him then. Something like that. Cowboys saying, "Good morning, Lex." Bam, and the Raptor Freaks. Bam. Keep preaching. Fuck nerds. And this kid Bilal Koulibaly is fire. Has a Scotty mix with Boucher and a shooting form like OG. He's climbing up on my draft board. Okay, Bilal Koulibaly. All right, I'm gonna have to go check this guy out. I've seen the name a little bit, but I haven't really seen his highlights yet. Okay, Bradley's recommending this guy, and Bradley's also saying Nick needs a year off to write his sorry note to Toronto fans and Masai. Where are you, bro? I know. Where are you, Nick? Where are you? I'm in downtown Toronto. And where are you, Nick? Where are you? You are probably in Iowa. You're probably in Iowa, or maybe you're jet setting around, getting wined and dined by all these teams trying to cater to you and get your favor. No, Nick, come to Phoenix. Phoenix is warm. Yeah. Ooh, Nick, come to Milwaukee. We've got the Greek Freak. Yeah. Ooh, Philadelphia. Yeah. Do you know Joel? Oh, you do know Joel. This is Joel. The Philadelphia job would be really weird right now because it sounds like Harden's leaving. And there are also a lot of grumblings that Joel Embiid might be traded. They're talking about a trade with Miami for Joel Embiid. It's really crazy. They're talking about a trade with him and other teams also. So who knows? The Philadelphia team and job may be very different than the one Doc was doing this year because the team may be completely different after this summer. So in some ways, that job may be unstable and kind of not very attractive because things that are happening in Sixers Nation may be very drastic this summer. And the coach may not know exactly who their superstars are. I think it's pretty sure James Harden's gone. And there is a possibility that they turn around and they trade Joel Embiid for somebody huge. You know what the one I heard was? Joel Embiid for Kawhi Leonard, straight up. Yeah. Clippers get Joel Embiid and Kawhi comes and starts playing for the Sixers. That would be really weird considering the shot. Yeah, Sixers fans, would you want that terrorist Kawhi Leonard to come and remind all your children of the travesty and sadness of the shot and the crazy trauma from that on a regular basis because Kawhi's on your team all of a sudden, and then you can get the treatment that he would give you just like Ben Simmons, where he's sitting on the bench in street clothes all the time. And you're like, why did we trade him for our MVP? And he's in LA now, and we've got Kawhi Leonard, and we're paying him money just to sit on the bench in street clothes. Yeah, I love that. That sounds like a fun little exchange. Go ahead, get Kawhi Leonard, Sixers. Trade Joel Embiid for Kawhi Leonard. Boom, that's a great move. You get Kawhi Leonard, the terrorist, to terrorize you with the shot, the 4-bounce. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah, I don't know what Nick needs to do. Maybe, he's not going to take a year off. He's too hot right now. In some ways, we're not hearing Budenholzer, and it sounds like he's going to take a year off because we're just not hearing a buzz about him. But Nick has definitely got a buzz around him, and he'd be dumb. Like, that's the whole reason why Clutch has done this to him is to get this Garner to make him the belle of the ball and have a whole huge interest in him. So he's not going to say, I'm not going to coach this year because he has to take the inertia and the wave of it all coming right now. If he does say, no, I'm not coaching this year, guys, I'm going to wait a year, he'd be stupid because all the openings right now will fill up and there may not be any openings next year. They don't always fire coaches every year. There may be one, but there may be a job that's really not attractive because it's a dumpster fire. So he has to strike when the iron's hot. So him taking a year off, that's not probably possible. He's going to take one of these jobs and he will be coaching another team next year. Watch. Because if he took another year off, that'd be totally against the clutch playbook for what they're trying to do with him. Watch. Fiercely saying Kyle, Nick Nurse, and Fred VanVleet are all buddies. By the way, Lex, saw the Instagram post from the clutch agent with Fred. It's definitely giving orientation day at a new job vibes. I know. I know. And all right, Fred's got another post yesterday on Twitter, and he's re-quoting or retweeting John Lucas, who's a great NBA coach from back in the day. He coached the Spurs for a little while. He played in the league for a while. He had drug and alcohol substance abuse problems as a player, but he got himself cleaned up, and he's become a really good mentor for players in all kinds of ways. John Lucas is a fantastic person, but Fred is retweeting him from yesterday, and basically, and maybe he's around John Lucas right now, which isn't a bad thing. John Lucas is a really good dude. But basically, the quote is this, and this is what Fred has a message to all of us: is when you don't move like everyone else, it bothers people. So we can read that how we want to. Are we? Is it because he made that clutch post that Fiercely's talking about, and now that everybody's kind of like reacting to it publicly, now he's reacting with a tweet that says this: when you don't move like everyone else, it bothers people. Well, I don't think you're moving like different than anybody right now, Fred. Seriously, I don't think you are. I think you're doing what a free agent does in the summer. And in some ways, I'm not mad at Fred right now. Fred is not like Nick right now. In some ways, Fred's going about things in the right way. And it's just how it's got to be. Now, I really am holding out hope that he still ends up being back on the Raptors. I'm going to be, yes. Like, if we hear Fred VanVleet signs a new contract with the Raptors for next season, I'm not going to be like a Fred hater. I'd be really upset that he's coming back. I'm going to be celebrating. In fact, I might have a party on the stream if we re-sign Fred VanVleet back to our team. So in some ways, it's a really weird situation with him. I don't like the writing on the wall is basically what's happening right now. And I don't like that tweet from yesterday because in some ways it's saying that he may be ready to do something really interesting with his career. But in some ways also, maybe he's still moving in the same way he always would have in the past when he's been in this situation as a free agent. And he always did circle back and came back and took the money with us and just stayed here. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this goes. I'm not totally giving up on Fred. And there is still a very much a path for him to still be a Raptor next year. And I am open for it. I'm totally open for it. But once again, just like Nick, if he ends up going somewhere and it's a really bad place for him to go, like a team that we really don't want to see him on against us, then yeah, I might be pretty pissed. If he goes out west, I don't have problems with that. It's basically like that. If you go out west, you're not in the Eastern Conference, it lessens things. I'm not as mad at Kawhi because he went to the Clippers. Now, if he had gone to the Celtics, I would have been hugely pissed off at Kawhi Leonard. You know what I'm saying? So it's that kind of thing too. Sometimes it's where you go. And also that signals whether the person has a problem with us or not too, because they get more of a chance to get back. So if the Celtics lose tomorrow night and they fire Coach Joe and they hire Nick Nurse immediately after that, and we have to see Nick Nurse on the Celtics a couple of times next season, like 4 times next season, then yeah, he's a direct enemy and he's gone across enemy lines in a very, very close enemy. And that's very much on purpose to try and get back at us. Seriously, think about it. He's salty right now. If he's going to have that kind of gumption like Steve Nash does to prove something otherwise, we're going to be getting it towards us. And in some ways, I don't like that because Nick is dangerous. But it's like, if this is how it's going to be, so be it. So in some ways, I'd much rather him take a Phoenix job. If Nick Nurse is coaching Phoenix, I will be happier than if he takes Milwaukee or Philly or Boston. Seriously, it's going to be very different. Let's see. Mike saying Nick isn't a lovey-dovey type of person. People would find it cold. Nick doesn't watch TV or normal things. He's a tactical thinker. He needs music and basketball to play out advanced theories. I'm similar. That's fine. You guys are going to be like, what, you're a dick? Mike, are you saying you're a dick? I'm just kidding. I get that. Listen, he is in some ways, though. That's not totally accurate. He is a lovey-dovey kind of person. He's shown very loving, kind of supportive kind of vibes. You see him when he's around his family. That's another thing I've alluded to is maybe Nick turned dark this season with his energy, and it's not just with the team. Something that Masai said, said, good luck with your family. Like, I think there may be some problems and issues with Nick, and I'm not going to speculate things about his marriage, but there could be personal issues in his life also that are kind of making him a little crazy right now too. So who knows? Who knows what all the different things are? Look, that's fine, Mike. All that's great about his personality, but that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about him being a dick and not being like very, I don't know what the word is. I mean, he's not very, in some ways, he's not mature. Let's just put it that way. He's immature in some ways. There's somebody who cannot be like a good sports person or have respect or be respectful and stuff like that. That's an immaturity problem to a degree. And you can get all say, oh, it's just competition. It's just him being very competitive and stuff like that. In some ways, that's bullshit. It just he has a part of him that never grew up. That is, a side that can turn around and be like a good sport in some ways. He doesn't have good sportsmanship. Let's just put it that way. How about that? He doesn't have good sportsmanship. I think that's the right way to say it. Look, you can have all that. I can have all that too and still be a nice guy. These things are not really connected to that, is what I'm trying to say too, Mike. Is like you can be all those things and still be like a decent person and have respect. And in some ways, he doesn't. He's not a very respectful, nice person, is what I'm getting. Cool Cat's saying, I don't hate Nick Nurse. I love his ruthless approach. It's winning over everything for him. He is not in the NBA to make friends. He already has friends. He just wants to win. In some ways, I really do respect that. And that's one of the reasons why I did really like him too as our coach. And you know what? You're right in some ways. But there is some diplomacy and there is some like people skills you do have to have around a team still. There's some massaging of egos. There has to be also a little bit of like you don't want to cause like feuds in the league just because you're being a dick yourself. We know about poking the bear with Dylan Brooks and LeBron. We know about poking the bear with Grant Williams and Jimmy Butler. In some ways, respect is important around this league. And at times, Nick Nurse could piss some people off, I'm sure, and maybe even motivate them, poke the bear himself, where they get up and go crazy on us, partly because of Nick. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. I get this, and I like that mentality. That's fine. And in some ways, that was something that was very attractive and a very good quality about Nick. So in some ways, I know it's a dual-edged sword. One side's really, really good about it, but some of it isn't totally good in some ways. A name was saying such a dope ass prize. Okay, so you do like this prize. It's too bad you're not playing Nameless. There's only 10 people playing. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I kind of want to keep this whistle. So I am going to be trying really hard to win this WNBA fantasy league because in some ways I just want to keep this. And if I win, I keep it. I'm just going to keep it here. So if y'all want this whistle, you win that WNBA, you get this whistle. That's all I got to say at this point. Yeah. Fiercely saying Lex parting ways with anything related to Nick Nurse, including the whistle. Well, I'm not putting this up. This part from that same day. I'm not putting this up. I'm going to at least keep this for sure. The whiteboard with the eraser. I haven't still opened it. And I think this is cool to have the coaches board with the Raptors symbol on it. And I'll be able to write up plays and stuff like that. I haven't opened it though. I'm kind of keeping it kind of like pristine and stuff like that. But yeah, this isn't on, but this is, and this was with it. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not a whistle person. I guess. I don't know. All right. Let's see. Nameless is laughing. Nameless saying Nick Nurse is dead to Lex too. Apparently, he's not totally dead to me. He's just gonna be temporarily dead to me while he's still actively participating in the NBA. Unless he comes back to Toronto and he's our coach again. No, I mean he's gonna be dead to me. Yeah. I mean we'll see what level of dead to me he'll be. If he's in the West, I'll be like a friendly rivalry and respect him and I'll love him still from afar. But if he's very close to us in proximity with his coaching, yeah, he's going to be dead to me and he will be the enemy. And that's just how it has to be. You're in Atlantic Division and you're not coaching the Raptors, Nick Nurse. You are the enemy. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. I don't care which one of those four teams it is. Philadelphia, Boston, I don't care. You go and coach one of those teams, you are directly, that's a direct, dead to me kind of thing. Yeah. Let's see. Fun guy saying Nurse just recently got brave. Nurse was a quiet, nerdy coach in early years. Fans didn't like him, knew him, and front office probably didn't either. Got too comfortable. Not the same guy we signed years ago. I don't know if that's totally true. It is true, fun guy. But let me explain why and how it isn't totally true. All right, listen, first of all, to do what Nick Nurse has done in his coaching career over all the entire years, he had to be cutthroat. He had to really want to go and get what he wanted to scrape from the very bottom in coaching ranks to go through all the rank ladders of going up and up and up in different places, all the different leagues he had to go to. He had to be cutthroat in exactly who he is right now that whole entire time. Now he looked nerdier. He looked like he had bad glasses when he first came to the Raptors, and he kind of just hung out in the background when he was coaching under Casey. And he was just somebody like I saw his name all the time. I was like, oh, what if our coach's name is Nurse? That's cool. That's kind of a little different. But I didn't really think much about him. He was kind of in the background. And then when they announced that he was going to be our next head coach, I was kind of shocked and surprised. Like, whoa, wait a second, who's this guy? In some ways, he's kind of a nobody. And then, his name started coming and put on blast. He won a championship his first year as a coach. And then he started dressing nicer. He had more style. He started having his hair different. He started getting money. He started getting notoriety. He became a celebrity, is basically what happened. And that changed him. That changed him. So it's really getting famous. Masai made him famous. And now he got a little big for his britches because he wasn't famous in 2017. He wasn't famous in 2018 even. It wasn't until 2019 that man became famous, and it did change him. It did change him. He had a different level of prestige around him, obviously, from being a champion all of a sudden, and that changed him to a degree. Maybe in his personality, maybe he did get a little buy into his legend a little too much, and maybe got a big head. So I don't know. But before that drive and all that kind of stuff was already there because he wouldn't have been able to complete the path that he did without being that kind of person in the early stages also. He had to be cutthroat. And like I said, there may be some carcasses behind him that he left behind, just like he's leaving the Raptors behind right now. Seriously, like he may have up and left some teams just to go get a better job all of a sudden and left them in really bad places. That's probably for sure true. You could go, maybe we go interview people who are fans of old teams that he's been a part of in the past and see how they feel about him after they left. Seriously. Cool Cat saying Miami is tired. A Boston fan was shouting the N word at Jimmy at the free throw line. NBA and Adam Silver need to address it. They do that every game. That's just the normal. It's just maybe the TV picked it up. There's certain markets where that is very common and it's unfortunate and it's not right, obviously. But in some ways, they expect it when they go to those games. Like the stories that Magic would talk about in the 80s when they were at the height of the Celtics and the Lakers rivalry and the finals and all that stuff, the ugliness that Boston people showed him and what they called him and some of the things they said, in some ways they had to be like duck and it's just like common as water and it just goes off my back. That's the sad, sick thing about it. But yeah, this is normal. This is normal behavior. In fact, our Raptors deal with it every time they go to Boston. All these teams do. It's not different. And Utah's another place that can be like this, very much like this, with very open and outward racism. And in some ways, racists are more emboldened today than ever because of fascists and the MAGA movement and the right wing right now. They're making it like, they're fighting so much of the fight. They're fighting against woke. And they think the fight against woke is to be more racist. And they're like, I want my right to be racist. So there's a lot of people being really racist outwardly and openly because they're being more normalized because of a really crappy side of politics in the US right now. That's sad. In some ways, it's regressing and it's awful. And the people that really do care about progressing in civilization and not backtracking need to fight and say, this is not okay. Whether it's La Liga and that bullshit over there or in the Boston arena with the Boston fans, I don't know if they can throw all these people out. I don't know what they can do about this, but you're damn right. It's ugly and it's stupid and it's Boston. Let's just put it that way. It's Boston. You're not going to hear people at Raptors games yelling that kind of stuff. No, you won't, but you will in Boston. Let's see. Mike is saying, I think Nick is great at adjustments with his system he runs, but isn't adjustable in the person he is. He's got like one way of coaching the team, focuses on adjusting play sets and not messaging. Yeah, I think this is pretty accurate. I think Mike's exactly right on this. Mike really does know Nick. And listen, seriously, I'm just the biggest fan of Nick as you are. It's just that I'm a little bit quick with changing things. I didn't just say, all right, Nick's always going to be this person to me in my head. I know the way that the NBA business goes and that your friend and your most important ally can turn into your enemy very quickly. It's just the years of watching the Raptors and, things like Chris Bosh and Vince Carter happening. You get that feeling, well, this shit's about to happen with Nick. And I'm just getting ahead of the curve real quick, Mike. And you may need to get in the car with me very soon, because you're going to see what happens. And you're going to be like, yeah, fuck Nick too. You may be like that with me in a couple months. Very sure. Like if we get in the first month of the season and we're facing Nick Nurse and he kicks our ass and he's an asshole about it afterwards, yeah, you may be singing a different tune about Nick Nurse by that time. That's what I'm saying. Mike, I know you're with the Raptors. You're not with Nick Nurse first. And that's the thing. I'm with the Raptors first too. And that's why I'm acting like this. Isaac's got the tree, and he's got Justin Bieber, and he's got the saw, and he's got a hospital and an ambulance. Oh, the casket. Yeah. Go get the casket, Justin. That's right. Nameless is saying that is disgusting, Cool Cat, and those perpetuators should be criminally charged. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how they deal with this. I mean, in some ways, like I said, it was so pervasive they couldn't just get everybody. In some ways, I don't know how much it is or how they can pinpoint people. Maybe they do single out people and say, you know what, you this is not cool, and you're out, you're banned. I don't know. I don't know enough about the Boston arena and their ushers and their security and how much they actually do about what and whether they will do anything about it. And what if some of these people that are down there at courtside are very, very rich and very influential season ticket holders and they're still very racist? You know, there's a lot of things that could be going on in this. I'm not saying that they should be okay and be able to do that just because they have money. But in some ways, the team's looking at the revenue with the people that come there, and they're like, if we get rid of all the racists, who's going to be coming to the games? It's a really bad situation. It's really, really bad. All right, David just showed up. What's the prize? The prize for the WNBA Fantasy League is the whistle that I got at the Raptors Coaches Open House last year with Nick Nurse and Earl Watson and Adrian Griffin and all them speaking. And I got this. It has the nice lanyard with the string to put around your neck. And this is the nice Raptors whistle with the logo. And I will even sign the back of it as the Raptors Freak. I'll put my name and sign it. And you have an autographed Raptors Freak whistle from the Coaches Open House, the whistle that Nick Nurse gave me. Now, I'm willing to part with this. But, David, I am making a strong showing in the WNBA Fantasy League. And I want to keep this. And I will if I win it. So I'm just going to say that. So you come take it from me. Somebody's got to win that league over me, and then maybe you'll get it. There is a playoff, and we will be playing team against team at all the way up until the end of the last week of the season. So be ready for that, David. Yeah, it's a long haul. And I see you're doing some good stuff. You and I are the highest point totals right now, and I see how active you are. You're getting into it, and you're learning it. And that's exactly why I wanted to do this, is so that we could all learn the WNBA better, and the players and the teams and how it's going and stuff. And I'm definitely learning the players in the league now because I'm doing my studying to get my fantasy team to kick some butt. That's right. MSJ saying the Heat, they are in serious trouble. Lowry looks broken out there. R. Williams on Jimmy looked to be the right move. Celtics have the better team. We all know it. Miami has to take game 6, must win. The crazy thing is that Miami's been running on fumes pretty much since the play-in, and they still managed to get the Eastern Conference Finals. No Tyler Hero, no Victor Oladipo, and now no Gabe Vincent. And they're finding out Gabe Vincent was actually really helpful to their team. They really missed him last night, and they're really running out of people. They have a lot of injuries. It's kind of like this thing where the Heat can say, well, if we'd had Tyler Hero or we've had this, we have that, they can say woulda, coulda, shoulda. But they need to just press on, and they need to get this job done. They do not want to be the team is the first team to ever come back on from an 0-3 deficit. So you need to just do this because you don't want to be in those history books, Kyle and Jimmy, and whatever. You guys got to win tomorrow night. You don't win tomorrow night, you're going to lose in Boston in Game 7. Trust me, you will. And it's true. Boston is a better team, but in some ways they were more in disarray. And the Miami Heat needed to keep capitalizing on it. Well, they let them get good feelings back, and now they're looking strong again. And now Miami's in trouble in this series. They didn't need to let this happen. They needed to take care of business the last 2 games, but they haven't. And in some ways, Jaylen Brown's helping them from the inside, but it's still not working. Nameless is saying, David, it's a whistle Lex got from the open practice directly from Nick Nurse in the package and signed by me. Yeah, I'll sign this. Not that my autograph matters or anything, but maybe it's kind of cool to have the Raptor Freak autograph on a Raptors whistle. I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. David likes it. Okay, it's sick. All right, cool. Nameless is saying, let's get a petition going. We want Nick Nurse removed as coach of Team Canada. Wow. I was thinking about this too. Like, how can we trust him? In some ways, the whole thing that's going to happen this summer is that Canada is going to lose and we're not going to qualify for the Olympics. That's basically what's going to happen over in the Philippines. I can already tell. It's like, listen, we have to beat France and Spain in our own bracket. Yeah, good luck with that. And this may be just the easiest way for things to end with Nick Nurse and Canada and Toronto all together. Go and play in that tournament, lose out, and we'll even be watching, see if Nick's tuned out or not even giving a wholehearted effort. And we'll see if they just kind of and they're out. And then we're not even qualified for the Olympics. And there's no reason for him to be around the team next year because there's no Olympics to take the Team Canada to. That's what I'm saying. It's already a hard enough road. Now we have a questionable coach, partly because of this Raptors thing. And now it's like, I don't trust him even at Team Canada. And Nameless is saying we want to get him rid of him. Well, I think we have to see it through, at least through this summer. But I would be not surprised if immediately after they exit the FIBA World Cup over there in the Philippines, over there, that he is removed as the head coach of Team Canada in August, immediately afterwards. He'll play those games right around the end of August. And then, boom, Team Canada is parting ways with Nick Nurse. I'll bet you will hear that. Seriously. Let's see. Trevor's saying, Nick Nurse, I have to give thanks to Dwayne Casey, having him as an assistant coach there. You know, this is the thing. Dwayne Casey, that when he fired him, he had the classiest letter to us. And we fired him, and he was the coach of the year. And then we went on and won a championship after him, and he still wrote a classy letter after he left Toronto. He has a classy letter, one of these ones we were talking about. You know, Casey wasn't that salty. Casey's a very good person. And Casey has been very, very adult and mature about his departure from the Raptors. He has no hate towards us. In fact, I love Coach Casey so much. And I hated how things went with him. I felt the very same kind of energy towards him as I did DeMar. And since things have really healed with Casey, Casey has no problem with us. We talk about Casey's revenge. He got Casey's revenge on us over and over again. And we got some revenge back at him. And, you know, the stuff between Nick and Casey, I should have been on Casey's side that whole time. That maybe Nick was being a little asshole to Casey and not being very respectful of him taking his job. And that may be why Casey's kind of like, yeah, Nick's a fucking jerk. And like, you know, now we realize more of the whole nature of that whole relationship, that in some ways Nick was very much an asshole and Casey was being a very mature adult man in the whole situation. You know, oh man, I have to question everything that's happened now. Mike's saying, in my opinion, Nick needed to do his job, but he's not what was needed to get the team to the next level. Masai gave him a chance to see and found out he couldn't adjust in certain ways. Nick is Nick, and our team needs a better coach for a younger team. Yeah, we talked about this. Nick can be fine for a veteran team, for a high level, high functioning, advanced team. Sure. But if it's young guys that need to learn and they need development, he's not good at that. It's the funny thing about the Jrue Holiday thing is, or who is it? Whatchamacallit? It's that idiot Channing Frye. Channing Frye. He's on social media talking about Nick Nurse coming to the Bucks. And he's saying, woo, if the Bucks get him, his development system so good. You idiot. You really don't watch basketball, Channing Frye, you dumbass. You think that Nick Nurse is a good development coach? He thinks, you know, people were trying to say, oh, you think that he developed Fred and Pascal to get to where they are? No. In some ways, he really didn't. That a lot of that's the leaps and bounds that happened with those guys were under Casey. And then, you know, how much of that is really Rico Hines with Pascal Siakam? So let the Americans and the American NBA teams think that Nick Nurse is a good development coach. That's not true. That is totally not true. And they will find out, whoever hires him next, that he will stifle their young players and their bench, and they will not get new guys coming up and growing underneath the very heavily used starters. So, yeah, you go ahead and think he's a good development coach, Channing Frye and the Milwaukee Bucks. Y'all will find out real quick. You'll find out real quick he's not a good development coach. He's a very good X's and O's tactician for an advanced veteran team that is ready to win a championship. Sure, he can get you there, but he's not going to be good for your young players. No, he's not. Isaac's saying Nash in the nick of time. Nash. I'm bringing up Steve Nash again. Let's see. You know, I was talking yesterday about Steve Nash a lot. And what I said was, well, is Steve going to want to coach, or is he want to just stay home with his money and hang out with his family? And yesterday on Instagram, he posted a little video of him playing a little bit of pickleball with his son in the basement, and his other son's playing basketball in the corner, dunking on the little hoop. And he's just getting that family time. And look, it looks so peaceful. It looks so happy. Maybe he's developing the hand-eye coordination of his youngster and trying to get him to be a better athlete and develop him already. Man, this dude has other things he could do than come to Toronto and coach our team. He must really want to do it if he's going to come and do it, because he could be very happy sitting at home with millions of dollars with his family and being around his kids all the time. That's the thing. That's the whole thing. It's like, do you want to just stay home? You don't have to do nothing. You're the greatest Canadian basketball player ever right now. And, you don't have to go be a headache of like dealing with an NBA team and being a coach, Steve. So I'm seriously, if you really want it, you really want to take it, and you are that motivated to get back and show that you're a great coach, okay. But if you don't have that fire burning in your heart and you'd rather be at home with your kids, that may be where you should be instead. Because that's the thing. You got to really want it, Steve, is what I'm saying. You got to really, really want it. Nameless is saying it's starting to make sense why Dwayne Casey is still not forgiving Nick. Very telling. I know this is part of like we're having a murder mystery and details are finding out later that you find out and you're like, whoa, this totally changes my perception of events that happened in the past because of how things have happened now. Totally, totally nameless. Exactly. MSJ saying, just got a Raps logo sticker for my car's gas tank. Looking good. That's right. Represent. MSJ Raptor freaking out in public with the cool ass Raptors logo on his gas tank. Very, very cool, MSJ. I bet you that's a sweet ride. When I'm out there riding around and I see other people with Raptor stuff on their cars, I always like give them that little Robert Redford nod. You go. You go. That meme is like, yeah, you go, buddy, driving around in your Raptors mobile. I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's see. Fiercely saying, I like watching Nuggets post-game huddles. Michael Malone gives props to each player who contributed. There you go. He seems like the right mix of like tough love and also like, very much like okay with giving compliments and putting guys like making them feel good. But he's still doing a really good job motivating them. Listen, to sweep the Lakers and LeBron like they did, they could have really easily gotten complacent and like had good feelings. It's not like Malone's giving compliments out to guys. Well, maybe they get a big head and they don't play as hard. No, there's a good balance of motivating them and really being like, guys, don't let up. Let's go get them. But you know what? You're playing so good, Jamal. I love how you're playing right now. I don't know how he does it. And that is awesome. I love Michael Malone for that. Like he's showing that you can have both sides and really get good motivation out of them while still being friendly and complimentary to them. So he's showing that it can be done by coaches. And you go, Michael Malone. You guys get that championship. Seriously, I want y'all to win, Denver. I want y'all to win. Mike's saying we fired him. I think that was enough. The season wasn't great, but he did a lot of good things for us over the 5 years. When pivoted and he wasn't the right coach anymore, ISO was used to develop. Yeah. I mean, we did fire him. I don't like how everybody's saying that he left or he he left. That's how the US is trying to like describe it. All the people that hate the Raptors down south, they try and make us look bad by saying that Nick Nurse just left us. Well, that's not technically what happened. Now, in some ways, he set it up for him to leave us, but we did technically fire him. And his bitterness and his silence since shows that that's not necessarily what he wanted. And that's the crazy thing about it. And saying, look, you think that it's just enough that we fired him? I don't know. I don't know, Mike. See, listen, you got to understand, I'm talking about the future. And you want Nick Nurse to be a problem for the Raptors in the future for us to win? Well, that's what I'm seeing. He's crossed lines. And when you cross enemy lines and you side up with the other side, I can be very like art of war, tactical kind of mindset about this. It's like if gang members like flip sides from the Crips to the Bloods, all of a sudden, that other side's pretty pissed at them. So there's a little bit of this going on with this, Mike. So we got to see which job he takes. Seriously. And let's ask you how you feel about him after that. And then after maybe a couple times when we play them in the season coming up. And I'll keep checking with you about how you feel about Nick. How about that? We could do that. I mean, listen. Ultimately, in the long scheme of things, when I'm an old man and everybody's done coaching and he's retired, I will honor him and praise him as one of the greatest coaches in Raptors history. But right now, I'm very present And I will respect him and love him in the future. It's just when he's going to be done, unless he comes back and he coaches us again. But I don't see that ever happening. So for right now, until he retires, he is the enemy. And we'll see what level of enemy he's going to be. We'll see. Excuse me. MSJ saying, when you start to think it's everyone else, it's likely you. And in this case, it was likely Nick Nurse. In my opinion, watching him near the end, it was perhaps those years Siberia took its whole toll on his mind. Siberia. Was he coaching in Siberia back in the day? Holy crap. That's crazy. Maybe he was coaching in Siberia. That is nuts. I see Nameless has made a line at 10:30. I appreciate that, man. We'll be a little loose with it on some days, but I appreciate it. We just in general kind of keep to it. We'll be fine. I like the time that we had yesterday was an hour and a half. I know I'm already almost to 2 hours, but if we keep it around at 90 minutes to 2 hours, we're going to be all right. But I really appreciate that, Nameless. You know what? We don't know. Nick Nurse, in some ways, is arrogant. And in some ways, like he's blind to certain things around him. And that's part of the problem is like the problem with head coaches is they'll have blind spots like Casey did in certain ways in the playoffs, like Budenholzer did for the Bucks, like Nick has had for us in the last year. And the blind spots are sometimes partly because of arrogance and they just can't see the problem. And that may be part of it right there. You might be right. Is there was a blind spot for Nick that he just didn't understand. All right. Nameless has said W's up. All right. Awesome. And I see that only a couple of people actually did write anything after that. That's awesome. Mike's saying Fred tweet was about the way he acts. He's not what people like, but he's his own person. Not gonna lie, nothing alerting. Everybody can interpret it different ways. And it's such a cryptic message. Of course, Mike, we can look at it a lot of different ways. I'm going to interpret it this way. Like I said, it's the day after a post with a social media post with Erica Ruiz, and it's very much a clutch post about him meeting new people. And then he's saying, like, if you don't move the same way as everybody else, people get upset. And I think he's directly talking about Raptors Nation. And we can infer all this stuff and how it means. Like I said, I'm still not totally giving up on Fred. I have a hope that he still will end up being a Raptor in a Raptor uniform next year, but I'm ready for anything. That's the whole thing. We got to be ready to stay present and be ready to move quickly. As far as personnel and people leaving and coming and going, there are going to be people that leave, like Nick, and then there's going to be people that are coming in. And we need to get ready for them and be very enthusiastic and showering positivity on those people. I gave my positivity to Nick for a long, long time. And I said a lot of things for him in this past year on this channel that in some ways I kind of regret. And I hate that in some ways. I wanted to be right about Nick, but I wasn't. And there are a lot of the Nick haters this season were right, Mike. And I know you and I put up a good fight for Nick's good name this whole season. Well, the Nick haters were kind of right this year, and I hate that. In some ways, I really hate that. I really, really do. Mike's also saying it's called tact. Nick has no tact in messaging. When he says things, his emotions are weird in comparison to the things he's saying. That rubs people differently. I'm sort of the same way, the presser. Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what it is. Tact is definitely probably the right word. I don't know what it is exactly. It may be that he's just not very considerate, that he's not very good at putting himself in other people's shoes, that he is maybe trapped in his own ego. And then maybe that's where he like is a real asshole and a dick to people. Because one of the things they teach you is don't treat people the way that you wouldn't want to be treated. And maybe he's treating people in a way that he shouldn't be treating them because he can get away with it. And, in reality, he wouldn't want people to treat him that way. I don't know. I don't know, Mike. In some ways, like I said, this is going to be an uphill fight with me as far as the perception of Nick Nurse at this point. I will give him credit for being a good coach. I'll give him credit for being very smart and intelligent and being a very good tactical coach. I will not give him credit for being a good leader. How about that? I'll give him a good coach. Great. He gets good coach grade, but I won't give him a good a grade for being a leader. And that's what his degree is in. Mike's saying, I'm not emotional about things. I'm really on the logical side of thinking. The little things don't bother me. I'm not worried unless we face him in the playoffs. And what's the chance of that? Man, well, what's the chance of that? Well, it depends on where he is, Mike. It could very well be a good chance that we do see Nick Nurse in a playoff situation later on. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the future has. Right now, we'll just stay present and we'll ride the wave of all the present information that keeps coming out. like the Jrue Holiday quote yesterday. That Jrue Holiday quote, circling back to the very beginning of this whole stream, is saying that like the Bucks are all about and being interested in having Nick Nurse be the coach, and if their team captain, a leader like him, is saying something like that, he's opening up the runway for him to land and be the next coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. That this is a publicity thing in some ways. I don't know. Is Jrue Holiday in clutch? Is he doing a little bit of a solid for Nick Nurse in some ways to try and guide him on the runway that goes into Milwaukee? I have no idea. But he's definitely okay with him coming to coach him. That's for sure. Maybe he wanted to signal that. But I also like the whole adding the party. We know he's not the nicest guy. Well, you know what? Toronto fans didn't know that until yesterday, Drew. You kind of revealed something to our fan nation that we all are under the perception that Nick Nurse was a stand-up nice guy. Well, you're saying he's not the nicest guy. And that made us all wonder about his character in general. You may be thinking, oh, he's a great coach, and you don't have to be a nice guy to be a good coach. And you're right. But in some ways, how you treat people does really matter, because that's what makes people remember you remember people by, is how they made you feel. And in some ways, Nick is making me feel really bad right now. And that's how I'm going to remember him. That's too bad. It's really too bad. Infamous is saying, salute, freaks. Giannis wants him as the coach. There you go. It's probably true. It's probably true. They probably are, like, they were terrorized by Nick Nurse the other way. And they're like, well, now we'll get the terrorist Nick Nurse as our coach. That's what a lot of like the Sixers and Bucks nations call Nick Nurse a terrorist. And they're all about him coming and coaching their team now as the terrorist on their side. They did. They say, oh, this terrorist defensive scheme by Nick Nurse with all these crazy 6'9" guys coming at us over and over again. He's a terrorist with his terrorism. All right. Miami, you need to get the job done tomorrow. If you let the Boston Celtics win in Miami in game 6, you're cooked. You're done. You're going to be on the wrong side of history, and you're going to give the Celtics a path to get to the finals after all. You really dropped the ball if you fumble this 3-0 lead, Eric Spoelstra. You do not want to be that guy, so make sure it doesn't happen. Please make sure it doesn't happen. Also, just real quick, we can do the social media check with our dudes online. We got Chris Boucher making funny faces on his Instagram with the song playing behind it. It's funny. And he's, as he says, his DMs are always open. If you just want to talk to yourself, he will do that. He's got a lot of funny memes and different stuff. Coloco putting on blast a guy named Ira Lee, and he's talking about when he used to score on certain people back in the day. And then you got Gary Trent. Gary Trent posting something yesterday. We don't see Gary post very much. He's putting on blast Israeli King Bolton, who's going to be participating in a face-off race against this guy named Anderson. And I'm not sure what kind of race this is. It may be like one of these tandem races where there's somebody in a wheelchair and somebody pushing them. I know my brothers participated in these down in Atlanta. So there may be some sort of race like that going on with Jordan Bolton, but they're doing it for charity. And it's going to be very much a big hyped up race in Minnesota between these guys, Anderson and Bolton, and they want money from people to donate for that. So Gary Trent is putting on blast, and he wants Raptor fans to donate money to Jordan Bolton and his race. Just so you guys know about that real quick. Siakam with another post yesterday talking about his foundation and helping people out. The Pascal 43 Community Foundation, doing good things in the community. We know he's doing stuff around Toronto all the time. And yeah, I love, he had a quote also on his Instagram, a post, and he's saying, what is it again? When it's translated, it's saying hang on. I don't know why it's not giving me the translate option at this point. It's like I could translate it yesterday. I want to read what it says in English. Hang on, one more time. There it is. Okay, where they put their hate, I'll put a smile on it. There you go. I like that attitude by Pascal, saying that where they put their hate, I'll put a smile on it. That's right. Don't listen to it. Turn it into happiness and goodness, Siakam. You keep doing what you're doing. You're doing things right. You're doing things right. And then Thad Young's got a picture of Thad, his 2 kids, once again. And Rico is doing all kinds of coaching stuff all over the place. Who knows? Maybe Rico Hines is our next head coach. And Ron Harper, always working on his shot and working in the gym. Always love to see that from Ron. So good stuff from the Raptors on Instagram real quick. And once again, check out your WNBA fantasy team. If you have a team in the league, set your lineup because we are playing a bunch of games tonight. WNBA in effect. Mike saying, nice guy in the sense of butt patter guy, like rah rah. He's very goal focused. W stream, nice guy in the sense of butt patter guy, like rah rah. Who you talking about, Mike? Who you talking about? You just talking about Nick Nurse? I don't know. We just talk about Nick Nurse all day. I'm gonna wonder if you're just talking about Nick Nurse, butt patter guy. I don't know. I don't know about that. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching me today. I'll be back tomorrow. Saturday, Share the Love Club. We're going to celebrate Jim Sand tomorrow. We haven't done a Saturday Share the Love Club for Jim yet, and we're going to go ahead and put him on blast. Assistant coach for the Raptors, retained this season. And just put a little bit more shine on what he exactly does for the Raptors and why we should all appreciate assistant coach Jim Sand still being a part of our team. So Saturday, Share the Love Club tomorrow. Jim Sand. We're going to take care of one of the coaches tomorrow. So please tune in tomorrow for that. And then on Sunday, guys, I think I'm going to do a very special Sunday report where I'm going to take my statistics that I compiled about the referees this whole past season. I'm going to tell y'all exactly which refs were the worst refs for us in this past season and which refs were the best refs for us last season. I'm going to look at the percentages that they were at from the beginning of the season and where they moved to and where they moved in relation with the other refs. So all the refs that moved down in percentage, I'm going to tell you all the worst refs that were towards us from this past season and all the refs that were fantastic for us this season where we won way more than we lost. So Sunday special report, ref report from the last season, talking about the best refs for the Raptors in the 2022-2023 season. And the worst refs also. So stay tuned to the Raptor Freak channel. Great stuff all weekend. Saturday, Share the Love Club for Jim Sand, and then an extended Sunday report, ref report for the whole entire year. We're going to talk about our best refs from the past season. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching me. And go Raptors. And listen, Nick, it's not too late to do a little bit of damage control with us. Seriously, I don't want to sewer your name all year. I'm going to be doing it, though. Depending on how things go. I want you to just smooth things over just a little bit, man. Be the bigger person. Be like Casey. Be like Budenholzer. Be like Doc Rivers. Those guys are more mature leaders than you are at this point. You've shown an immaturity in you, a lack of character flaw in you that I'm really sad to see in you, Nick Nurse, that a bigger man would be able to say goodbye in a proper way, but you're not. In some ways, you look like a child. A spoiled little child in his own ego and his feelings. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, Nick isn't a fist bumper, upside pumper, upside pumper. Yeah, I don't know. I don't care about all that at this point, Mike. It's all water in the bridge. I don't make excuses for him. The things are just what happens. And that's all that's going on right now is just what happens. And that's all I'll react to. All right, Isaac, I see you there in Ottawa. Happy Friday equals a W. Y'all get out there and touch grass like Scotty would tell you to. All right, let's go Raptors.